Hello, Wakefield, and welcome to another episode of Hats Off Wakefield. Today, I have with me another famous Wakefield face, Mr. Sam Bliga. Give it up for Mr. Bliga! Woo! All right, Mr. Bliga, tell me a little bit about you. What do you want us to know?
Actually, I don't want you to know anything about me, but I guess we could start with graduating from college. There was a shortage of school teachers in the state of Connecticut, where I'm originally from. I've been in North Carolina now for 34 years, so I really consider myself a North Carolinian. I don't think much about Connecticut. My family is no longer alive, except for one brother. There's no need for me to go back to Connecticut. I love the state of North Carolina, but getting back to me, because there was a shortage, I decided I would give teaching a try, and back in those days you could get your master's degree and certification because there was a shortage of teachers, not an abundance of teachers. So I got my certification. I never finished my master's. I made a very poor choice. I was 6 hours short, and I decided I wasn't going to go into teaching. All right, I had experienced 1 year of teaching a fifth grade class in Ridgefield, Connecticut at a parochial school called St. Mary's Elementary, and which no longer is in existence, but I had a fifth grade class of 48 kids. And that was enough for me, and I decided I would go into the corporate world where I could make some serious money, and I did. I worked for Pitney Bowes in New York City. I was one of their, according to them, shining stars. I commuted back and forth by train every day for 2 years because I found out that I also didn't like the corporate world, and decided I would continue to run my father's business full time. So I worked in the corporate world. I run my own business, got back into teaching, and it's too long a story to explain how, but it has to do with my wife's boss at a job she had. She was a former principal of one of the high schools in Connecticut in one of the more wealthier counties, and she thought I had the personality and intelligence to become a school teacher, and I did. So I taught in Stanford Public School System for 11 years. I lost my job because of declining enrollment, just the opposite of what we have here in North Carolina. So being a unionized school system, the last one in is always the first one to be let go. It doesn't matter how good you are, how poor you are. And because I started late in the system, I was one of the teachers who was let go. So my wife had the opportunity to move to North Carolina with her company. We decided to take the plunge and move to North Carolina, best move I ever made. And teachers were in short supply here in North Carolina, so it was very easy to get a job, all right? And I also, in the job I did get was at Millbrook High School, where I coached the girls varsity basketball team for 3 years. And we were okay. We weren't great. I didn't win any state championships. I wasn't as good as one of my former students, Mrs. Blackburn, was with the program here at Wakefield High School. So obviously I taught her well, but I wasn't able to achieve her great success. And I left coaching at Millbrook High School because I was raised in a family, and coaching takes an awful lot of time, and it's one of the reasons when I was asked to enter an administrative track to become an administrator, I turned it down because these people work ungodly hours as far as I was concerned, and I like to have a life besides just school. So I taught at Millbrook for 12 years. I had 11 in Connecticut, 12 years at Millbrook, and I got burnt out at Millbrook because anybody who has me knows that I give you the full 90 minutes every day, and it just caught up with me. I didn't enjoy teaching anymore, so I left, started my own painting company, which was very successful. And I think some of you people can associate with this. You have the estates across Falls of the Neuse. My company painted, I'm going to say, anywhere between 8 to 11 houses over there, inside and out. So I have a stake over there in the estates. Then I purchased a travel agency, which allowed me to do an awful lot of traveling, and ended up selling both the painting business and the travel agency business. And your first principal, Mr. Takis, who I taught with for 11 years at Millbrook High School, called me one day and said, "How would you like to come and teach at Wakefield High School?" And I immediately said no. He called me a second time. I immediately said no a second time. He called me a third time. He said, "This is the last time I'm going to bother you, but I really want you to take it serious about coming back into teaching." And I did, and here I am. I promised him that I would give him a minimum of 3 years because he was somewhat concerned with my age. And here I am 15 years later still at Wakefield High School, and I don't see retirement anywhere on the horizon. Okay, so I enjoy Wakefield immensely. I'm always pushing the positive aspect of Wakefield, and not just because I'm a school teacher. It's just that I've seen student body after student body that when they are challenged with something, they take the step forward. And what I mean by that is, I can remember a Thanksgiving drive falling a little bit short of our expectations. The word went out to the student body, and it was an incredible response. We went way over what we originally had planned to get. I've seen families who have fallen on hard times. We had a student who was burned out of a home several years back. They had more clothes than Kohl's has by the time people brought in what they had. And it wasn't only old stuff. I've seen people come in and bring brand new clothing, brand new shoes, brand new this, brand new that. I, as a teacher, when the Newtown massacre at the elementary school occurred a few years back, I challenged 2 of my classes to raise money, because I had somebody who promised that for every dollar we would raise, they would match it dollar for dollar. We raised over $3,000 and sent the check, and I still have that letter in a frame from the people in Newtown. So I don't see anything negative about Wakefield. We've had some ups and downs, but that's not the typical Wakefield response, and it's not the typical Wakefield behavior that I'm used to. So, I love what I do, love my students, just love life here. And as long as I continue to learn from my students, because that's my patented answer when people ask me, when are you going to retire? I just tell them I'm going to retire when I stop learning from my students, because I think learning's a two-way street. So,
well, you are a shining star here too, like your former boss told you there.
Well, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I like what I do. I think it comes across, and I think my key to success has been showing my students the ultimate source of respect. I respect my kids, or my students. They're not kids. I hate to use the word kids because they're young men and women. But I give them the ultimate respect, and in return, I get the same thing back. It's a two-way street.
That's right. So you've had a history of teaching at various levels. What's been your favorite subject to teach?
I'm going to say it's a tie.
Okay.
But if I had to pick one in the tie, just by a nose, it would probably be law and justice. Mainly because I think I get the credit for starting it here. It wasn't going anywhere. It was lying dormant. Mr. Takis, my first principal here, and I got together, and he said, why don't we try to give law and justice a chance to get off the ground? And it became, over the years, one of the most popular subjects. And I think not only, I know a lot of people pick electives based on teachers, but I really think kids who have taken law and justice have really gotten a good feel. And the ultimate reward for me is I have emails from 4 of my former law and justice students who are now attorneys. 2 of them graduated from Georgetown Law School.
Wow.
1 of them from Carolina, and off the top of my head, I really can't think of where the 4th one came from. I think it's Campbell. Have sent me emails where they said if they hadn't taken law and justice, they probably would have never became an attorney. That somehow I turned them on. And
that's awesome.
It makes you feel good. But law and justice gets it by a nose over AP government, because I also like politics.
Got it. Well, speaking of politics, the elections are coming up soon.
Yes, they are.
Can you tell me why voting is important?
I always approach it this way. If you don't think it's important, you need to go to any military cemetery in the vicinity, or better still, to Arlington National Cemetery. And if seeing all those crosses in diagonal lines doesn't grab you in the heart, then something's wrong with you. Because thousands of Americans have given up their lives to give you the opportunity to do that. Just look at today's current events. You got people, over 200,000 people have died in Syria because they never had the opportunity to vote. Or look at Russia. Used to be the Soviet Union when I was growing up. But look at Russia. Russia will always claim that it has a democracy to an extent that it allows people to vote. But there's only one candidate on the ballot, so why even vote? You either vote for somebody like Putin or you don't vote at all. It gives you a chance to voice your opinion, even if you don't like the candidate. So we have a presidential election coming up, as a matter of fact, 2 weeks from today. And I keep hearing commentators and people saying, well, I'm going to vote for X because it's the lesser of two evils. And it's really a shame that we've gotten to the point where we're voting for people because they're the lesser of two evils, not because they're the better candidate with better ideas. And so it's just so incredibly important, because even if you pick the losing side with your vote, you still sent the message to the winning side that you don't agree with some of the things, or maybe even all of the things that they have offered. I know I ran for a political office back in Connecticut, was fortunate enough to win, and it makes you grow up quick when you see that there were, in this particular case, over 30,000 people who didn't agree with my point of view. I was glad that 33,000 people did agree with my point of view, so I eked out a win. and one of the greatest experiences of my life. But voting it's a privilege that not a lot of people in the world get, and I don't think a lot of students understand that. I don't know where we fall short in doing it. I'm not going to blame them, but for some reason they just don't think it's important, and I think it's critically important.
So what you're saying is, even if you don't necessarily side with one or the other, it's still important to vote.
Oh, without a doubt. There's no doubt about it, because
Okay.
you want to get your message out there, how you felt, and I know that when I won, there were thousands of people who didn't agree with certain things, so I want to find out what is it that they didn't like.
Right.
What am I trying to get across to the voting public that they don't perceive as beneficial to them?
What was your position when you ran?
I ran for the Board of Education after I lost my job in
Okay.
Connecticut, and
So you were on the board.
I was on the board for 2 years. Yeah.
Cool.
I've done a lot of things. I was
Cool.
on the Board of Education for 2 years. I was also president of the Teachers Union for a year and a half, and people who voted for me thought that I would bring a teacher's perspective to the
Yeah.
Board of Education.
Well, that makes sense.
So, makes sense. And I did.
So, back to voting.
Mhm.
If I haven't registered, is it too late?
Yes,
It's too late.
yes it is.
Can I go ahead and register
Can
knowing
register
that
at-
the next time I can vote?
And I strongly recommend that. You just get it out of the way,
Okay.
you're there, and the next election, you're in.
Got
Which
it.
will be 2 years from now,
And I have to be 18 to vote.
correct?
Do I have to be a U.S. citizen?
Yes, you do.
Okay. What is early voting? What is that? I've heard a lot about early voting. What does
Yeah,
that
early
mean?
voting is a new phenomenon to alleviate crowded polls, standing in line for hours. Somebody came up with the idea that let's let people vote early. It's caught on like wildfire. Matter of fact, I stopped in Wake Forest on Saturday morning. I felt, let me get this out of the way. I happened to be near the polling place. It was a 4-hour wait, I guess, to get in. So
Whoa.
it's like anything. When it first starts, people rush to it because they want to get it out of the way.
Right.
I think the best thing to do is go towards the end
Yeah.
of time period, because I think in North Carolina, and I should know this in North Carolina, but in Wake County, I believe there's 17 days of early voting if you want. So I would go maybe the 13th, 14th, 15th day, see what it is, because if they keep getting these crowds in early voting, then you might as well go to day on that Tuesday, November 8th, and
Right.
probably have a shorter wait than you normally would. I've never really had a wait long anywhere where I've gone. I just
Okay.
thought, because I'm going by, let me see what it's like. The line stretched forever.
Yeah. The ballots are the same.
Exactly the same.
Okay. What's an absentee vote?
Absentee vote is, let's say that you are a businessman who is going to be in Europe
Okay.
that week. You can, because you're going to be absent, it's called an absentee ballot.
Got it.
That's what you would look for. And you fill it out basically the same way, and no problem.
Okay. I know that there are a lot of differences between candidates, and this is a long ballot.
Yeah.
So where is the best place for me to go, or what should I do to research issues, figure out who kind of sides with me the most, and to learn who's running for each office and maybe do a comparison? Where do I do that?
Okay. This is where I think social media comes into play.
Okay.
One of the more positive aspects. You can always Google. You can look up the presidential, whatever party's platform.
Okay.
The platform being what they're running on, what they're
Right.
standing on. That's the idea of the platform. And each
Yeah.
platform has planks that make up the platform. So
Yeah.
let's just say that education, because you're in education, is a big thing you're looking at. Each party will more than likely have a plank that deals with education. So you
Okay.
can read it, see what it is, see if it
Compare.
falls in line with yours. You go to the other party, see what theirs is. Let's say that foreign policy is a big thing. I mean, the planks. I just had my AP class run their election, okay?
Right.
And they had to come up with party platforms. And they came up with government spending was a big issue with them. Student debt was big for them because
Yeah.
these people are headed to college next year,
Yeah.
all of them. Foreign policy was big. Welfare was big. Other social types of issues. Police reform was another issue. So they Googled a lot of this stuff, and they got a lot of their information that way. But it requires work, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, work's not a word that a lot of students want to associate with their education. But wait till
Yeah.
they end up going to college and see what the workload is like.
Well, that's true.
They'll wish they had this workload as opposed to what's going to happen. But
Very
that's
true.
for another subject.
Would it be okay if I go online, do a comparison, pick the people based on, who aligns best with my views,
Mm-hmm.
print it off and take it with me?
Yeah, you could do that.
Could you do
Yeah, you
that?
can do anything you want. You
Okay.
can take it out of your pocket, so on and so
Okay.
forth. People may look at you a little bit strange. I know that my dad, when my dad and mom were alive, my mom was not the sharpest knife in the drawer educationally. My dad would give her the list of names. This is who you're gonna vote for, not who you might wanna vote for.
Right.
It's just the way it was back in the 50s, 60s, and so on and so forth, so.
My,
yeah,
how
you can do
times
that.
changed.
No, have they changed?
Yes.
I'll tell you.
I would dare my husband to tell me that. It would
I
not
know.
go well.
Knowing your husband, I know, would not go well as
No,
right.
it would not.
That's for sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank
You've given us a ton of information and gotten to know you better and voting better. So get out and vote if you're registered. If you're not registered, you need to get registered so that the next time around you can vote, right?
That's correct.
Go America. Hats off to you, Wakefield. And remember, keep your hats off in the building.